Hello, friends. As you can see from the background behind me, I'm experimenting with different backgrounds. I think maybe I've got quite a good one this time. The actual, it's a photograph of the actual book, and then cropped to give the title and the author only, which I think works reasonably well as a background. Um, all right, well, you're welcome to let me know in the comments what you think anyway. So let's go back to part 9 of Sir Ernest Satow's introduction to the uh, Captain John Saris's journal. And to do that, I need to share the document, which I'm about to do. Um, I should say I have fixed this document because the last reading and the one before that, um, it was missing 2 pages, which had not been scanned in the original. So what I've managed to do is go to the library of Kee-tah-kew-shoo Institute of Technology, where I used to work. And there, I think I had purchased it with my budget when I was working there. There is a copy of this book, and this allowed me to remedy the missing, or to find the missing 2 pages and to photograph them and insert them into this PDF. So we now should have no problem in going through the whole of part 9. So with that, I shall begin. Part 9, Saris's voyage home and his reception by the company. The Clove started from Hirado on her homeward voyage on December the 5th. Before leaving, Saris signed a memorandum of instruction for Cox, in which, as already mentioned, he speaks unfavorably of Adams. Cox came on board with the members of the factory, the trading post, to say goodbye. And after they had taken their leave, the ship's company was mustered. It consisted of 46 English, 5 blacks, and 15 Japanese. Besides these, there were 3 passengers. The Clove steered for the coast of China, intending to make it near Ningpo, but no land was seen till she sighted the Pescadores in the Formosan Channel. She then picked up the island of Shangchuan near Macau, known as the spot where the Apostle of the Indies breathed his last, and thence steered southwest across the Gulf of Tonkin to Cape Varela. Gulf of Tonkin, I think that's Vietnam, isn't it? Or off the coast of Vietnam. From there, she coasted along Cochin China as far as Pulau Condor, crossed the Gulf of Siam, and hit off the Malay Peninsula not far from the river Pahang, passed the strait between Bangka and Biliton, and arrived at Bantam on Java Island, Indonesia, on January the 3rd, 1614. Here, Saris remained nearly 6 weeks, loading his ship with pepper and setting the affairs of the factory in order. On February 13th, 1614, he notes in his journal that the Clove got out of the Straits of Sunda, and on May the 16th, she anchored in Table Bay, that's Cape Town, finally reaching Plymouth on September 27th. While at anchor here, he wrote a report on the commodities which could be disposed of in Japan. A copy of this is printed at the end of the journal, along with another written from Table Bay to the Captain General of the English appointed for Japan, and delivered to the captain of the Concord there. The Concord being a ship, of course. The following transcripts from the court minutes of the East India Company complete the history of the voyage. Okay, so we're going to read the transcripts now. If I could just move down. August 19th, 1614. Mr. Governor, intending to take the air for a sevennight in the country, is that a week in the country? 7 nights, acquainted them with his intents to send a letter to be left at Sandwich for Captain Saris to be delivered unto him so soon as he shall arrive in the Downs. That's an area of sea, south part of the North Sea, off the Thames estuary. To admonish him to prevent the making away of any goods from abroad, either by his mariners or any others, until God shall send them up to London. The copy of which letter, being read, was approved and ordered to be delivered to some one of the farmers' men who shall be appointed to go aboard and have an eye to the business in person. September 30th, 1614. 2 letters were read, sent from Plymouth by Captain Saris, dated the 27th of this instant, signifying his arrival in the Sound, enforced thereunto through contrary winds, his desire and intents being to have made his passage directly for the Downs. But being now there, he proposed to leave such of his weak people on shore as would desire the same, and furnish himself with fresh mariners there, which he hoped to effect very speedily by the assistance of one Mr. Collier, a merchant there, who had promised to furnish him with all things necessary. And then he certified his resolution to take the first opportunity to hasten from thence, and not to put foot ashore until he had brought the ship about. So he first stopped at Plymouth, yes. A letter was also read from Mr. Abraham Collier, promising to furnish the ships with necessaries and charge the same to the company by bills of exchange. Mr. Governor acquainted them likewise with 2 other letters written by Captain Saris to his brother George Saris and his cousin Saris of the Custom House, wherein he wished his brother to hasten unto him to Gravesend, and send a close lighter, down, and to bring 2 trusty watermen down with him, mentioning some other letters sent by him by Richard Dale, one of his master's mates, who departed from Plymouth the day before the post that brought these letters, which gave the company great cause to suspect that Captain Saris had used very great private trade for himself, and purposed to convey away his goods out of the ship. Howsoever, he pretended a show of readiness and willingness to put them all into Mr. Governor's hands. So Saris is under suspicion here of taking private trade on his company voyage. It was resolved, therefore, to send 2 of the committees, that is, directors of the company, to the Downs to board the vessel and remain on her, to solicit the help of the customs officials to prevent private trade being brought ashore, and in order to intercept the private letters, to send one official to attend at the Star in Bread Street, the place where Western men do resort, and another to go and stay at the postmaster's house by Charing Cross, where it is supposed he may come by post horse. I suppose the Star in Bread Street is a pub, but I'm not sure of that. Mr. Governor acquainted them that in this letter sent unto him Captain Saris challengeth a promise formerly made by Mr. Governor of giving him leave to have a lodging in his house, and therefore desired to know their opinions what they thought best to be done therein, whether to entertain him into his house or no, he supposing that being with him in private in his house, he shall have the better opportunity to draw from him more than otherwise he is like. But some advise Mr. Governor to forbear to countenance him in that manner for his own credit's sake, because of the imputation that will be cast upon him in regard of the extraordinary favour which the generality do suppose he beareth unto him, and will bear him out, howsoever he hath demeaned himself. As also to avoid the clamour out of his hearing that will be made by the women of Radcliffe against the captain at his return, who will exclaim against him for his rigour used against their husbands. Mr. Governor assured them of his innocence, that he is far from upholding him against the company in any act whatsoever, and desireth them to conceive that opinion of him. Yet in regard of their minds and the clamour which he is of opinion likewise will be made against him, he is well satisfied to forbear to show any kindness at all unto him, or go down any part of the way to meet with him, that is, with Saris. Yes. But some, again, on the contrary, allege that as it is not fitting to grace him too much at first, until they may be better satisfied hereafter of his carriage, so they conceived it as fitting and as unfitting and dishonourable to the company to disgrace him that hath made so hard a voyage, and not wronged them, that they can justly accuse him of, and therefore wished that his 4 years' service should not be so slenderly respected, which may prove as beneficial a discovery, beneficial a discovery to this company and land as ever any was made, for aught that can be yet objected, and therefore desired Mr. Governor to go down to Gravesend or Erith to meet him, seeing the greatest matter of substance that he can be yet taxed for directly by the company is that he hath not certified anything of his voyage, wherein, although he hath been much overseen, which they cannot but hold to be a great wrong done, yet not such as doth deserve to disgrace him wholly. The company, finding by Captain Saris' letters that he received good relief from the Concord, determined to instruct their vessels to afford like relief when necessary. A proposal to send a ship yearly to the Cape with provisions for homeward-bound vessels, filling in their time with whale and seal fishing, was held to be very good. October the 1st, 1614. Certain letters were read from Captain Saris, written at sea the 24th of September last, and brought by Richard Dale to the same effect which his former were. As, however, in one of them he mentioned the governor's adventures with Sir Henry Middleton and himself, Sir Thomas Smythe explained that this was not a case of private trade, but had already been sanctioned, for my Lord Treasurer Salisbury, desiring that the company should take a shop of his in his new exchange to be furnished by them with East India commodities, Mr. Governor did effect it of himself, and is at present 300 shillings out of purse for the same. The company thereupon gave way, at Sir Henry Middleton's going, that a matter of 25 shillings in pieces, reals, should be sent to be disposed in paper, fans, inks, boxes, china dishes, and the like commodities for the furnishing of the said shop, and by Captain Saris there was sent a crease worth 6 or 7 pounds, which Captain Keeling gave unto him, being a thing of no use in these parts. This explanation was accepted as quite satisfactory. The committees, that is, the directors of the company, going to the Downs, were instructed to advise and persuade Captain Saris to be contented to submit himself unto the company, and to permit his goods whatsoever he hath to be brought up to Mr. Governor's house and put into his possession, to be seen by him and some of the company, and they do promise to deal friendly and kindly with him, and to use him so respectively as he shall have no cause to complain of any hard measure towards him. Respectively will be respectfully, I think, but as to one that hath done them good service abroad. As they do understand, he did in lading pepper upon the Orelops after the hold was filled, and putting it into the bread rooms and some other places as they were emptied, which is more than ever was done by any others, and good service not to be forgotten. £10 was paid to the post that brought the first letter from Saris at Plymouth. 300 shillings was sent by the committees going to the Downs. Sorry, £300, not shillings, was sent by the committees going to the Downs to provide necessaries for the ship and to buy the goods brought home by mariners to prevent their sale to any others for marring of the markets here. October 7th, 1614, Captain Saris, being much condemned in the carriage of his business, for that he had not acquainted the company with the estate of those parts where he hath been to discover, as also in regard of his supposed private trade. Whereupon some propounded to have him taken out of the ship and brought up to London. But that was generally distasted, not to disgrace him in that manner, which would so maim his reputation as that it could not be well salved again. October 10th, 1614. Letters were read, one from the committees the directors sent to the Downs, explaining that the rumour of a disaster to the Clove had arisen by reason of a great Fleming that suffered shipwreck in those parts. That would be a Flemish ship, I suppose, yes. Another from Captain Saris, from Plymouth of the 3rd of October, acquainting them with the danger he had passed riding at anchor in the great storm, within the harbour, where it pleased God their anchors held whilst a Fleming was cast away, and giving them further to understand of the unruliness of his men, who do run ashore and sell their goods notwithstanding any commandment or speeches that he can use, and therefore desireth to have one of discretion sent down that may assist him, by supplying the place of a purser for the present to keep account of what is done. It was resolved to act accordingly. October 12th, 1614. A letter was read, sent by William Adams from Hirado to Captain Best at Bantam, bearing date 1st of December, describing Saris's entertainment and privileges procured by him. October 14th, 1614, resolved, when sending next to Saris, to ask him to forward a copy of such instructions as he framed and sent by the Concord for Japan, as also the copy of such as he left at Japan and Bantam. October 18th, 1614, debate on sending for Saris to come at once overland. This proposal was negatived. Mr. Governor moved a new question how matters should be carried at his Saris's return, and sundry opinions delivered. It was thought fitting to have him kindly used until some ill carriage of his be certainly known, worthy to be condemned, and resolved to entertain him well until he hath been with the king, and dispatched all those business for the present. What's happened there? All those business for the present and compliment from the Emperor of Japan. And although cause be administered by others to bring him to his answer, yet to use him kindly even in his accusation, which will be a means to draw from him the more. And therefore it was advised to have such letters perused as have been already sent, that the same course may be prosecuted that hath hitherto been followed, that a true decorum may be held in their proceedings. And those letters being read, which had been sent to Plymouth, they were approved, and held fit to proceed peaceably and fairly with him, entreating Mr. Governor to write a letter of salutations, and another to persuade his speedy coming overland, as well to satisfy the company with some instructions to be sent with those pinnaces, boats that is, concerning their affairs at Japan, Bantam, and elsewhere, as also in regard his matey expecteth performance of a present from the Emperor of Japan, the time being well near expired, which Mr. Governor did signify unto his Majesty, his Majesty, beg your pardon. Not matey, Majesty. It's an abbreviation of Majesty. But if he shall refuse upon sight thereof to come, then that Mr. Governor would write another letter more sharply, commanding him to come up, all excuses set apart, which the committees may keep and not show except they see just cause, and so to conceal all other letters that have formerly been sent unto the Downs. The governor enjoined strict secrecy on all present. October 25th, 1614. A letter was read, written by Captain Saris, the 17th of October 1614, from Plymouth, wherein he made particular relation of his business at Japan, what commodities are fitting for that place, and what to be expected from thence, with the valuation of them and profit that may be made, which gave some good satisfaction for the present. Another debate took place as to sending orders to Saris at Plymouth to come up to London by land. This proposal was opposed on the ground that his presence on board was necessary to keep the crew in order, and that it would be a pity to give him so tedious a journey at the end of a long voyage. It was accordingly dropped. Doubts were expressed as to the benefit of sending commodities directly from hence to Japan, supposing that the benefit will not answer the charge. But it was answered that commodities from Bantam, Siam, and other places in the Indies will make good profitable returns, and a main reason for selling a trade is for vent of our cloth. And therefore, seeing the pinnaces are ready to go, the ships that is, I think, it was resolved to let them go on and not stay to take any commodities for those parts, but rather to have another ship follow after to go to the Cape with the next fleet, and then direct to Bantam with goods for Japan. Further deliberations was deferred until Saris should arrive in town. October 26, 1614. Captain Saris having returned certain letters and writings from Plymouth, some of them were now read. A copy of the remembrances left by him at Bantam with the factors at his going to Japan, a copy of such as were left at Japan with Richard Cox, Tempest Peacock, and the rest there, and likewise of some others left at Bantam at his coming away from thence, and a copy also of such privileges as are granted by the Emperor of Japan unto the English for free trade there, being as ample as can be required in that kind. November 11th, 1614. Hearing that Saris's brother had started for the Downs, the company urged their two committees, directors, to set out also, who promised to undertake the journey again this evening. Saris was to be directed to come up from the Downs overland as speedily as possible with his books. November 12th, 1614. Captain Saris presented himself in court, having made his journey overland from Plymouth, where he left the Clove in the Sound upon Tuesday, finding the winds so contrary as that they had been put back 5 several times upon their setting forth. And being questioned of the hopes for trade at Japan, he acquainted them with sundry particulars, as well to be had there as such as are vendible, saleable, can be sold, mentioning a blue stuff like indigo to be had in great quantity, but a pattern thereof forgotten, to be bought, being hard as stone. To be brought, being hard as stone. Much Cambodium. Cloth sold of 40 pounds per cloth for 4 pounds the 2 Flemish ells. Cambodium is gamboge. Okay. But yet not fully known what worth it is of, for want of time at his coming away, they affecting that which is low shorn and best set forth to the eye, which may best be preserved in thin sheet lead, to put some of it betwixt the folds, the better to press the same. Yellow wood that is brought from Siam is in great request there, and sold in great abundance for ready money. And also skins, according to the note here, it's deer skins, long formed an important article of trade from Siam, deer skins, that are much requested in those parts. And to approve the worth of the said wood, he instanced that Lucas Anthems did deliver some to a Fleming to be carried to Japan, who had promised 2 for 1 profit at his return. Pepper carried from Bantam will yield 2 for 1 there at least. And whatsoever is sold there is for currents payment in silver, which being refined at 4%, may be put into coin or bars, for which any commodities may be had at Siam, whereby the scandal for transporting silver from hence will be taken away, giving the greater encouragement to that trade, because the voyage is made in 20 days thither, and so back again, taking the opportunities of the monsoon. Yet he found the Dutch very opposite to hinder the English in their proceedings all that ever they might, as well by underselling, contrary to their promise, by all other means of discouragement, making show of want without any occasion. Captain Saris delivered his opinion likewise that at Tahanye in the Moluccas, a trade may be beaten out for cloves with 2 ships, which will be able to oppose the Flemings, having the consent and affection of the people of the country, who proffered him all kind welcome until they were discovered by the Flemings and driven away, and gave satisfaction for sundry other particulars demanded, as well for his remainders at Japan as Bantam, a particular whereof he brought with him. But because the factors at Bantam had made sundry debts, contrary to his directions, some desperate and some good, he therefore wished that they should be warned not to trust debts upon their own heads, assuring them that there is no doubt to be made of any force that the Spaniards can offer at Bantam or elsewhere if men keep from under their forts. Neither are they able to offer any violence against our shipping in any place if men be provident. Provident? Prudent? Does that mean prudent? November the 14th, 1614. The question whether the committees in the Downs, the directors in the Downs, should return at once was left for them to decide. The ship was in the charge of the master. A letter was received from Plymouth from Walter Peyton, dated November the 8th, complaining that William Russell, Anthony Fairs, Henry Hemmings, and Mortimer Preddy had quitted the ship. A debate took place whether the Japan trade was likely to be worth following up. Whereupon Captain Saris made particular relation of sundry commodities that place doth afford, and the profit that is like to be raised by some others carried thither, as well as pepper from Bantam, which will yield 2 for 1, as raw silk, whereof there cannot be too much carried, Brazil wood, and skins from Siam, all which will yield present silver, which may be refined at 4% loss, and with that any commodities may be bought at Japan and Patania, and of the China junks, which by a second return to Japan will yield 3 for 1, with which silver, pepper, or any other commodities may be bought at Bantam for good profit to be returned for England. Another argument was used to persuade that the Flemings have bestowed 1,500 pounds sterling, at least upon a house there, which should not have been done without expectation of good profit, and have reaped great gain to themselves. And therefore, seeing a factory is already left there, and the country very rich and populous, there needeth no doubt to be had, but good trade may be made. Whereupon they, having weighed all reasons as well to persuade as dissuade, were absolutely of opinion that the place is very hopeful, and necessary to be now seconded with one of those pinnaces which, coming to Bantam in June, may be ready to take the monsoon from thence to Japan, and therefore resolved to have one of them to be appointed thither with some commodities fitting that place. And being satisfied from Captain Saris what cloth and colours are best requested there, they resolved of sending some few according to the time and means of stowing them, resolving to have 20 provided, stamets, brown, blues, and blacks, made up in half cloths and packed up in 5 packs with thin sheet lead. And hearing by Captain Saris that stone pots are much requested there, it was held fit to send some for a trial, and therefore entreated Mr. Middleton to take Captain Saris with him to the house in Southwark, where they be made, or any other place where they can find them, to make choice of the fashions, and let a chestful be packed up safely to be sent. As also 1 barrel of steel, which Captain Saris saith is much requested also. And that'd be a barrel made of steel, I suppose. And conceived it fitting to have one of these pinnaces sent away to Japan, although Captain Downton should be gone thither before they come to Bantam. November the 23rd, 1614. 3 sailors were called to account for leaving the Clove at Plymouth. One pleaded that he went to visit his parents, who were living near that place. The other 2, who had got married and thus doubled their folly and offence, produced a letter from the master forbidding their return on board, which they maintained was a discharge. They were remanded till the master should arrive. December the 2nd, 1614. The arrival of the Clove at Erith was announced. It was resolved to send down hoys to bring up her cargo. Captain Saris desireth to go aboard with the committees, which they held to be a very reasonable motion not to be denied. So the 2 vessels were the Advice and Attendant. The former went to Japan. Okay. That's referring back to the note above. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, there we are. One of these pinnaces. Okay. And then Captain Downton is the second footnote, if we can get it. I wonder. Oh dear, we have to make that smaller to be able to see it. Number 2, Captain Downton, General of the 1614 Joint Stock Voyage, commanding the Gift, Hope, Hector, and Solomon. That was Captain Downton. Okay. Next page. And presumeth, yes, that is the next page. And presumeth that he hath done the company as good service as anyone, and therefore hopeth that he shall find as great kindness from them as others have done. Yet is very well satisfied that whatsoever he hath aboard should be brought up to Mr. Governor's house to be viewed, referring himself to their courtesies. December 6th, 1614. Hearing that the Clove is likely to be at the Wall, Blackwall, this night, the court begged Mr. Governor and some of the committees to go down to see bulk broken and appoint some to take care of the business aboard. A general court, i.e. of the members of the company, was held the same day. The governor informed the assembly of the safe return of the Clove, her chief lading being pepper, with some silks and some other commodities. The ship itself being returned well qualified, sweet and clean, and a very good ship, having brought home good store of victuals without any want unto the men in the voyage, although some aspersions were cast upon the captain for scanting of his people, yet if no more be approved than what hath hitherto been justified, he did no more than beseemed a wise and prudent commander, who, knowing his voyage must necessarily be protracted, wished rather to draw his men to a reasonable allowance at the beginning by proportioning them than by continuing a full hand to hazard, want, and scarcity at the latter end of his said voyage. And to give him his due, hath performed his voyage to a place upon discovery not formerly known, Japan, that is, of course, where he settled a trade, capitulated upon good terms with the Emperor of Japan, and left a factory, a trading post there, not without good hopes of profit and honour to his Majesty and the English nation. And returning, came not on shore at Plymouth during the term of 6 or 7 weeks, whilst the ship rode there, which things are the rather enlarged, that if upon proof some imputations that have been cast upon him can be justified, he should bear the burthen. But if they shall appear to have been undeserved, I think it means, and to have proceeded from malicious and scandalous tongues, then that those for whom he hath adventured should justify him, if they hear him maligned, and carry a good opinion of him. Defend him, defend his reputation. And for the supposition that hath been had of his private trade, he offereth for the company's satisfaction to bring all his goods into their warehouses, and will leave himself to their considerations, to deal with him as they shall think fit. And some others, delivering their opinions, wished, seeing this company hath many enemies, who will be ready to seek advantages against them, that therefore they should not be enemies to themselves by condemning this their commander in that particular of Fuller, who, forgetting himself, took him by the throat, kicked him, and struck his commission out of his hand against the mizzenmast. Yet he never put him into the bilboes, as has been falsely suggested, and that he could do no less than carry a strict hand over such an unruly company, who were grown to a head, and were in hazard to have overthrown the voyage if they had been suffered to proceed in their mutinous courses. And yet he was not discouraged, but performed the voyage with great danger, and by those places where never any English went before, with honour to his king and country, and hopeful profit to this company hereafter, and therefore held him worthy of his due commendations. Mr. Governor made known that the auditors, having considered of the return of this ship, do deliver that the voyage will afford 3 for 1, so that whosoever have yet taken out nothing may have 3 capitals. If they have received 1, then 2 more, and so proportionably. December 13th, 1614. It was announced that Saris's goods had all been brought into the company's warehouses, and that he had delivered a list of them, and had offered to sell them to the company. A debate arose as to his private trade, some alleging that other private men have formerly done the like. Against this it was asserted that he had brought but a small number of spice for the company, and as great, if not a greater, for himself in some kind, and that all this private trading must be put down, seeing it will be a means to overthrow their voyages hereafter. Mr. Governor delivered his opinion that he doubteth private trade cannot be avoided by this company, and is partly out of hope, and he pointed out that if dealt with severely in London, future captains would find means to put their goods ashore at Plymouth. In the end, a committee of 7 was appointed to look into Saris's commission, to see how far he was debarred from private trade, that if he have deserved well, he may have a fair loose, if ill, to undergo their censure. December 16th, 1614. Some imputations and aspersions being cast upon Captain Saris for certain lascivious books and pictures brought home by him, and divulged as was delivered, which is held to be a great scandal unto this company, and unbeseeming their gravity to permit. Mr. Governor assured them of his dislike thereof, the rather for that it was in his house, and therefore purposed to get them out of his, Saris's, hands, if possibly he could, to be burnt or otherwise disposed of, as the... Sorry, let's see if we can just... Yeah, okay. As the... So the next page. Companies should think fit, or else to free his house of them and him both. December the 20th, 1614, a note was read, which Captain Saris hath procured of some proceedings of the Dutch at the Moluccas, and which he desireth may not be much questioned how he came by them. In the passage whereof there appeareth in them great hopes of having trade with China, and therefore a good encouragement for this nation to expect and attempt the like courses, by surprising their shipping, which although the Emperor regardeth not, as is alleged, yet there may be hopes of a means thereby that his people will mutiny against him for loss of their goods and men. And supposing that there may be many other good observations gathered out of the same, they entreated him to procure the rest of the writing to be translated. Captain Keeling was ordered to have some private and special directions to bring away any of the Dutch merchants whom he shall find willing and desirous of such a favour. The appointed committee's directors were requested to meet and settle Saris's business. Some of Captain Saris's company running away from him at Japan, their wives and friends demanding their wages as were due unto them for their service till the time of their departure. The company held no wages to be due unto them, having forsaken the ship, and therefore would not give way to have any part thereof paid unto any man or woman. Mr. Governor acquainted this court that the screens which are sent unto his Majesty from Japan, being 50 in number, that's right, 6 rokumai byobu, 6 screens, yes, are not so good as some of those which the company have, and did therefore wish that not above 2 or 3 should be presented to his Majesty, and exchange some of the best of the companies instead of them, wherein they desired Mr. Governor to use his discretion, and to do therein as he should think fit. January 10th, 1615. Mr. Governor acquainted them that great speeches having been made of certain books brought home by Captain Saris, which caused the company and Mr. Governor's house to be censured, he hath procured them from Captain Saris, and shut them up ever since, and now hath brought them forth that such as have heard derogatory speeches used upon the Exchange and elsewhere should now likewise be eyewitnesses of the consuming them in the fire, which he hoped would give satisfaction to any honestly affected, that such wicked spectacles are not fostered and maintained by any of his company. So this is pornographic books, apparently, maybe shunga, brought back from Japan by Saris, much disapproved of. And thereupon, in open presence, put them into the fire, where they continued till they were burnt and turned into smoke. Oops. Want to see if there are, yeah, a couple of footnotes there. Probably these are the notes referred to on page 25. He was about to start for the Eastern Command of the 1615 fleet. That's note number 2. Who is that? Captain Keeling. Right. Okay, next page. January the 14th, 1615. Geoffrey Kegel, brewer, having lent £30 to one Kafar Molikantin, a sailor of the Clove, requested repayment from his wages. As the sailor had deserted in Japan, the court declared his wages forfeited, but for pity of the poor man, the case was referred to 2 of the committees to consider of it. Captain Keeling desired to have such instructions from Captain Saris as he hath observed concerning Japan, as well as of the manners and dispositions of those people, as the merchandising or any other observations that he hath made concerning those parts. Whereupon they entreated Mr. Hanford to undertake the care thereof to see them effected, and to procure them from Captain Saris with his journal. So Keeling is going to Japan after Saris, wants to be briefed, basically, as I understand it. January 30th, 1615, an old man, one Richard Edens, father of Christopher Edens, preferred his petition, craved to be relieved with his son's wages. But as the son had deserted in Japan, they held no wages to be due, as had been concluded by the Trinity House in the like cases. Trinity House, the Lighthouse Authority of England and Wales. But to relieve the old man, who seemed to be in necessity, 40 shillings was given to him out of the poor books. January 31st, 1615, orders were given that Saris should be consulted as to commodities suitable for Japan. Same day, meeting of the Special Committee consisting of Sir Thomas Smythe, William Halliday, Robert Johnson, and H. Hanford. The last reported that he had examined Saris's accounts and found them satisfactory. Then, proceeding to the consideration of the present business, which is the examination of his commission, they find that nothing can be alleged against him, but only for his private trade, wherein his own letters gave the just cause of jealousy. And the company took a strict course in sending down, as they did, 2 of the committees, directors, who took notice of whatsoever he had, and Mr. Hanford delivered a note thereof unto the company, and is of opinion that for performance of his voyage, and making a profitable return, none have formerly done better. So Saris gets a good opinion from Hanford. But some objections were made by reason of his ill carriage towards his people after such a tyrannical manner as some have accused him, whereunto answer was made that, seeing others do not accuse him, there is no reason for this company to prosecute any such matter, seeing what he did was to do them service and to punish some who contemned the commission and the authority given by him by his majesty, but they ought rather to maintain him, although he should have exceeded his authority a little, for otherwise, if they themselves shall call their, so Eden's was an error for Evans, okay, shall call their commanders in question for tyranny, when none others do stand up to accuse them, they will terrify them from executing due punishment hereafter for any acts that shall be committed. And for him he hath been accused of so many things, but nothing approved. So that in conclusion they grew to this head to examine his commission, how he hath carried himself towards the company, and to satisfy themselves concerning his private trade, that having given that occasion of suspicion by his letters which were intercepted, and many have taken notice of, that therefore the particulars should be examined to satisfy both themselves and others, lest an imputation be cast upon the committees and him if it should be let pass. And therefore resolved and ordered that Mr. Hammersley, who hath already taken some pains therein, should examine his private trade out of the books of the custom house, and make report at another meeting how he doth find such things, that an end may be made one way or other, he himself supposing that he hath had much wrong to be used thus hardly by the company, more than ever any others have been heretofore, and that they do begin with him to make him the first precedent of their severity, and have let others pass that have not deserved so well nor performed such service as he hath done, if they were balanced together. February 9th, 1615. Special Committee of 4 as before. This meeting being appointed to consider further and determine of Captain Saris' business, they made question how those great number of presents should be bestowed, which were mentioned in his account, amounting to 3,000 and odd reals, which Mr. Hanford, who had looked into the estate of his accounts, answered were partly bestowed in the Red Sea upon the Bashor at Moha, and partly at Japan, which princes will expect great presents who are sought unto. Yet whatsoever had been presented was with the factor's approbation. They then passed to his private trade, taxing him greatly for the same, and holding him worthy to be made an example for the same, having strayed so far beyond his commission. But his griefs were laid open, whereby he conceived himself much wronged in that point, that whereas many others have heretofore used private trade, and in one particular late instance, Mr. Best's was double as much as his, whose voyage brought forth but 2 for 1, yet his service was recompensed with a gratification, whereas he himself sent home 2 ships at first, went forth with the third, the Clove, that is, Saris went forth with the Clove to Japan, went with the Clove to Japan, according to his commission, passed further than ever any Englishman did, with much honour to his nation, and as great profit to the adventurers, if not more, than others formerly have done, and yet they cleared, and their actions passed over. They were cleared, and their actions were passed over, and he only censured more than they all. And whereas many things are supposed and suspected by way of circumstance, okay, next page, having not apparent proof but imagination, it was therefore wished to insist upon those things only which are apparently to be condemned, namely his private trade in himself and permitting it in others. And he, presenting himself in court, was certified of his errors by Mr. Governor, especially in his private trade, which was in the same commodities the ship was laden with, which cannot be excused, and permitting it in others. as some particulars were named of one John Thompson, who sold 2,600 weight of pepper at Plymouth, as is said, besides cloves and nutmegs, together with some others, so that it is alleged that there was sold 9,000 weight of pepper and as much of cloves. But he utterly denied to have sold any part of that great quantity at Plymouth, or that any of it was for his use. Spice, of course, being in demand in England, pepper included in that. That Thompson's name was but used by some who coloured their goods under his name, and for his own particular held it his own error that he is otherwise used than other men have heretofore been, in that he sold them not away at Plymouth, but put them into their hands, and confessing the tolerating it in his people to give them means of encouragement to stand for their own goods upon any occasion of necessity, as well as for the company. But being taxed for intercepting and opening the company's letters, he answered that it was after the ships were departed from the road, which he did to be satisfied of their contents, to frame his voyage and proceedings accordingly. And being questioned in some particulars concerning Sir Henry Middleton, he certified them that Sir Henry acquainted with him in the Red Sea that his estate was worth £2,000 sterling, but what became thereof, or befell afterwards, he knoweth not. Yet he advised him there to have loaded the trade's increase, a ship, and sent her for England from the Red Sea, where was lading enough to have been had for her, assuring them that if it had not been for him and his dissuasions, there had been pillage made there, which might have been an occasion to have had all seized upon here. And after long debating of the business, and much time spent, many objections made, and his answer returned, he in conclusion confessed his error in his private trade, but expected the like kind dealing which others had found, having always preferred the good of the voyage, as he protested. Whereupon they at last grew to this consideration, that they intended not to make him an absolute example in regard of the smallness of his wages, but were contented to let him have his wages and goods, and only reserved his bond, to be determined by the company whether they will let him pass without freight. February 14th, 1615. As a result of a conference with Saris, the following goods were ordered to be provided for Japan: broadcloths, baize, lead, gallipots, writing tables, refined camphor, elephant's teeth, ivory, I suppose, Holland cloth, cambric and lawns, Sleska cloth, pictures of wars, steel in gads, and now the next page, skins, Sanders wood, raw silk of Canton and Langton, with sundry other particulars. March 7th, 1615. The committees reported, Go back up. I need to go back up. There we are. The committees reported their deliberations concerning Saris, and a letter was read from him to excuse matters past, and comparing his service and deserts with other men's, charging both Mr. Governor and committees with a promise made by them at Gravesend that if his voyage succeeded well, he should find them thankful for a gratification over and above his wages. As to his opening the letters sent to the company by their factors, he excused, opposing he might lawfully have opened them, being one of the company. This right was of course denied. As to his private trade, he reiterated that it was nothing comparable to that which some others had who had escaped censure. Some insinuated that the committees, the directors, had not been sufficiently severe, and that all that had been done was but only mere shows without any substance. This was indignantly repudiated by Smythe, who declared that he had acted solely in the company's interest and had in no way sheltered the offender. It was also suggested that Saris had made a profit out of the presents alleged by him to have been given, but this was refuted by pointing out that the factors, who consented to the giving of the presents, were also eyewitnesses of their delivery and would have detected any attempt at fraud. Being interrupted by some new arrivals, the court suddenly break up, and nothing was absolutely determined. March 10th, 1615. Messrs. Hammersley and Hanford reported that as regards presents, all were given with the written consent of the factors, and that half of them were to the emperor, besides great presents out of his, Saris's own particular purse, to divers persons, and extraordinary charges he was at in putting himself into brave apparel to confront the Portugals and Flemings, the Dutch, who sought all the means that possibly they could to disgrace him, whereby he was at the extraordinary expenses of 400 livres, pounds, in his own particular, as he is ready to be deposed, and chargeth not one penny thereof unto the company's account, having done it for the honour of his country and the grace of this company, whereby there shall be no need hereafter of giving unto the emperor, and hath procured large privileges under the emperor's firm, and amongst other things, that no custom shall be paid inwards or outwards for any goods. The emperor's firm, is that the emperor's seal, I think? Some observed that having been the chargeablest voyage because of the length and continuance, yet it is found to be as profitable as any other, and therefore held it reasonable to give him his due for his good deserts. And if they do find justly by his ill carriage that he hath offended, then to tax him for the same. And thereupon some again, as formerly, discovered the discontent of the company, one, in opening the letters sent to Mr. Governor, two, for his private trade, and three, by his slight regard of the committees in general. But his answer to the first was that knowing a copy had been sent of the said letter, and he desiring to be satisfied what things had been done in his absence, did it by the consent of Bull himself. His private trade is less than some other men's, which they have passed over, and Mr. Hammersley, having taken notice of his goods here and in the outports, doth find no more entered in his name. And for his carriage towards the committees, the directors, he knoweth not that he hath offended in that matter. These things having been thus pressed against him, and matters heard without partiality and prosecuted without affection, some motion to have an end put to the said business, which they supposed is to be effected by two questions. One, whether to give his bond and pardon his freight. Two, and whether to give him a gratification, a gratuity, I suppose. But before they proceeded unto them, some wished that they would be pleased to take into their considerations the small wages that he had at his going forth, which if they had been answerable to Mr. Best's, would have advanced him 500 livres more, 500 more pounds, or if such as Henry Middleton's, would have advanced him 1,100 livres more. And he himself presseth much the promise made him at Gravesend to be considered according to his deserts. The question at last being propounded, they were contented by erection of hands, a show of hands, to give him his bond and pardon his freight. But the second being put for a gratification, some advised not to do it presently for distasting the generality, but rather to respite it a while, delay it, although others thought it fit to determine the same without any further protraction, it being in their own power to effect, and knowing the reasons why they did it, there are none will be so uncivil to censure them, but they shall be able to give them sufficient answer. And the question being put, they did by erection of hands, show of hands, defer the bestowing of any gratification as yet, but to respite it a while, that all may not be done too suddenly together. March 17th, 1615. General Court for sale of goods. A byobi, byobu, that's a Japanese byobu, byobi, or screen, gilded and painted with some resemblances of warfare, was knocked down to the governors for £6. Another byobu, portrayed full of horses, was sold to him for £4, 13 shillings and no pence, with a duplicate for £4, 11 shillings and no pence. I think there's a misprint there. Should be a D. 3 other BOBs of warfare sold for 5L, £5, 12S, 12 shillings and 0 pence, £5, 13 shillings and 4 pence, and £6, 15 shillings and no pence. 2 portrayed with fowls fetched £3, 3 shillings and no pence, and £4, 7 shillings and no pence, and 3 of hunting, £10, £8, 1 shillings and no pence, and £8, 5 shillings and no pence. June the 20th, 1615. Saris's business was again considered. The charges against him and his answers, acknowledging that he erred like a man, but is now otherwise altered from that he was at his return, being changed and much reformed, which reasons being duly weighed and considered, they thought it fit to give him some good gratification for his and all others' better encouragements. And two sums being propounded of £300 and 500 marks, 2 sums, I'm sorry, excuse me, they bestowed upon him freely, by erection of hands, by show of hands, the sum of 500 marks, which some promised he should thankfully accept and acknowledge their kindness unto him. July the 4th, 1615, a letter of thanks from Saris was read, requesting also to be permitted to increase his adventure from £400 to £2,000. He was permitted to make it £1,000. August 19th, 1615, John Saris passed over to Ralph Gore his adventures of £25 in the 7th voyage, £45 in the 9th voyage, and £400 in part of his adventure in the joint stock, with all profits. An adventure would be an investment, I suppose. Yeah. And June the 7th, 1622, John Saris transferred £300 adventure in the first joint stock to William Stone, the company's treasurer. And that is the end of part 9, mainly quotations from the court records of the East India Company. Part 10 is very short, I think, and then there's part 11, and then SATOW's introduction is finished. So I'm going to stop the share now. I was relieved to be able to find the 2 missing pages which had not been scanned in the document which I downloaded. So that means that my reading is now complete for this, and I can replace the version which I've already uploaded of this part 9 with this particular version that I've just done. So if you've followed me this far, thank you very much for doing so, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thank you and goodbye. Oh, and please like, comment, and subscribe.